Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you. My name is Ronnie, and I'm so happy to be with you here today to share with you some information about Islam, and specifically to begin with the topic of Jesus, who is a very beloved and important prophet in our religion. And obviously, many people have misconceptions about Jesus, particularly in terms of what Muslims believe, because they assume that Muslims don't believe in Jesus and that's why they're not Christians. But actually, that's not the case. Muslims do believe in Jesus, and we love Jesus. And Jesus is very important in our religion. Jesus was actually a very great prophet in our religion, but Muslims don't believe that Jesus was the Son of God or God in the form of a man, or really assign any type of divinity to Jesus beyond the fact that he was just a prophet like all of the previous prophets who had come to share the message of God and the message of worshiping only one God. We do believe that Jesus was born of a virgin birth to his mother Mary, but we don't believe that this makes him divine because, of course, we know that Adam and Eve didn't have a father as well, but that didn't make them divine. And in fact, they didn't even have a mother, and Jesus did have a mother. Jesus is known as Al-Masih in the Arabic language. Al-Masih is translated commonly as Messiah, and literally it means that he was given the miracle of healing by touch. And importantly, Muslims don't believe that Jesus was crucified. Of course, this is a very important belief in Christianity, that Jesus died on the cross, but Muslims don't believe that Jesus was crucified. In fact, we believe that Jesus was saved from the crucifixion by God and was raised to heaven and will return and live out the rest of his life in the future, and he is with God in heaven now, waiting for that return. So we don't believe in the crucifixion of Jesus, which is an important distinction from Christianity, of course. And Mary, the mother of Jesus, is a very beloved figure in Islam as well. Really such an important figure that you'll find many Muslims will name their daughters Maryam, which is the Arabic form of Mary. And in fact, my wife and I named our daughter Maryam because Mary is so beloved to us. And in fact, there's an entire chapter in the Quran, our holy book, that is named the chapter Maryam, named after Mary, the mother of Jesus. And again, we do believe in the virgin birth. We believe that the angel Gabriel came to Mary to explain to her that she would have a child without ever having relations with a man. And we believe that Jesus, when he was born, was given many miracles, including at his very birth, he was given the miracle to be able to speak and talk to the people around him from the cradle. And this story is given in the Quran, explaining how this happened. In addition to some misconceptions about the role of Jesus in Islam, of course, there are many other misconceptions or myths about Islam. And I do want to share a few of those with you, probably one of the most common of which is the role of women in Islam. And some of the misconceptions about the role of women in Islam come from the fact that in some Muslim countries around the world, women are not treated well or are not considered equals to men, but this is purely a cultural or sometimes a tribal understanding and has nothing to do with the religion of Islam. In fact, the religion of Islam was very progressive and was hundreds of years ahead of the rest of humanity when it came to tell us that women are equal to men and that they should be treated equal to men. And in fact, in Islam, they're actually treated better than men. So men and women were very clearly told in Islam many times, including in the Quran, that men and women are equal and are equal in the sight of God and are judged by their piety, not by their gender or their wealth or anything else. Women, in fact, as I mentioned, are treated a bit better than men in the religion of Islam, with several examples, including the role of mothers and how much honor is given to the mother in the family, but also from a financial point of view, because in Islam, the father of the family is responsible for all of the financial needs of the family. And the mother, if she decides that she wants to work, the wife or the mother wants to work and wants to make money, or she may have wealth of her own from inheritance or from other businesses or other ways, that wealth, that money is hers alone. She's not responsible to spend that money on the family. And so for that reason, the woman actually has an extra level of honor or position in society because her wealth is her own. If she works by choice, the money is all hers. She doesn't have to spend it on the family, whereas the father is responsible for the needs of the entire family. In addition, Islam tells us that sons are not to be favored over daughters. which is a cultural thing that you find even occurring still in this country, in the United States, in many families, that sometimes sons are favored over fathers because they're able to work and they're able to bring money into the family, et cetera, et cetera. And in many countries around the world, unfortunately, that's a cultural phenomenon that sons are favored over daughters. But Islam tells us very clearly in the religion, in many different places, including in the Quran itself, that sons should not be favored over daughters. They're equals, and we should love them and care for them and take care of them equally. Another misconception having to do with women has to do with the issue of marriage. Many people have a misunderstanding that in Islam, the daughter can be given away in marriage without her agreement, that there's arranged marriages and women are married away without having any say in it, and this is not true at all. Arranged marriages is not a phenomenon that has anything to do with Islam. Again, this is a cultural phenomenon in some countries around the world. Some of those countries are Muslim countries, some of those countries are non-Muslim countries, but arranged marriages has been around much longer than Islam and has nothing to do with Islam. In fact, Islam specifies that the daughter should give consent and that the woman who's getting married has the right to accept or reject any marriage proposal. There's no such thing as a forced marriage in Islam. It's completely forbidden. And in fact, when we look at the rights that Islam gave to women hundreds of years ago, we find that Islam again was very progressive and was ahead of the rest of the world when it came to how women should be treated and honored and respected. So for example, if you look at women's rights here in the United States, they came hundreds of years after Islam. It wasn't until 1839 in this country that a woman could own property, and she had to have permission from her husband even to do that. Well, Islam, again, almost 1400 years ago, Islam gave women the right to own property and again specified that their husband had no right over that property. It was purely for them and they didn't have to spend it for their family. So look how much more progressive Islam was, hundreds of years ahead of even the United States. And here in the United States, it wasn't until 1920 that women were given the right to vote, and that the United States essentially told women that you have one vote just like a man has one vote, so you're equal. Well, it took until 1920 in this country for women to be equal. But again, hundreds of years ago, Islam told us that. Again, Islam was much more progressive when it came to the rights of women and the status of women in society. This important concept, this kind of misconception again in terms of the role of women, the status of women in Islam, again, this misconception comes from cultural differences for countries around the world. And just as we know that there are Christian countries around the world, there are Buddhist, Hindu countries around the world where women may be treated differently, there are indeed Muslim countries where women are treated differently than men, but this is not because of Islam. In fact, it's despite Islam. If those people were following Islam the way that it is meant to be followed, they would give their women all of the rights that men have, and they would be honored and given a very high status, again, in some ways even higher than men. Other examples in Islam that show the equality between men and women is that Islam gave women the right to inherit, which at the time, again, nowhere else in the world was this the case. Even in the Roman Empire, the Christian Empire, and among other religions and other societies, women were considered property. They weren't somebody who could inherit. In fact, sometimes they were inherited, and somebody would inherit a woman from a man who died. Islam says, no way. Islam came and said, no, women are human beings. They're equal to men. They cannot be inherited. No, in fact, they should inherit when a relative of theirs dies, just like men inherit when a relative of theirs dies. They were given full freedom of expression, just like men. And of course, one of the things that, again, is a misconception in terms of the status of women has to do with the head covering, or the hijab. We call it the hijab, or the covering of the hair. And indeed, in Islam, there is a dress, there is a certain type of dress that's required of both men and women. So a dress code, you could say. There is a dress code in Islam, or a minimum amount of the body that should be covered for the purposes of modesty. And so a man has a certain amount of his body that he has to cover, and so does a woman. But the woman's dress code includes the covering of the hair. So a pious or an observant Muslim woman, you'll find her wearing a hair covering. But this is not unique to Islam, actually. In fact, if you look at many cultures around the world, you find that even in Christian culture, nuns cover their hair because this is a sign of modesty. You find that, Catholics, when they go to prayer services, the women will wear a hair covering. You find that Orthodox Jewish women cover their hair. Mennonites, Amish, the women cover their hair. So again, this is not something that is unique to Islam. The idea is that the dress code, or the way that Muslim women are told to dress, and even for Muslim men, is to dress with modesty, so that a woman or a man is not valued for their appearance or their sexual desire, you could say. They're valued for their piety, their goodness, their humanity. And so by wearing modest clothing, both for men and women, we protect ourselves, and we also are valued for our humanity, for our goodness, rather than for our looks. Another misconception that I'd like to share for you is the concept of jihad. If you've ever heard the word jihad, you probably have heard it in a very, very negative way, because those people who are purposely seeking to make Islam look bad, unfortunately, they use this concept of jihad to say that Islam is a violent religion, because Islam believes in this idea of going and fighting and killing everybody who's not a Muslim. And nothing could be further from the truth. Islam is a peaceful religion that encourages us to love our fellow human beings. In fact, to love all of the creation of our Lord. This is one of the ways that we express our love of our God, of Allah, is by loving His creation, which means that we love everyone, we love humanity, we love goodness for all humanity. The term jihad is translated many times into English as a holy war. So non-Muslim opponents of Islam will say that, oh, Muslims believe in jihad, which is holy war, so you have to be careful of those people because they're going to come after you. And again, nothing could be further from the truth. The word jihad really, literally in translation, means a struggle. So Muslims use the term jihad to refer to any struggle, the struggle between good and evil, the struggle of me fighting against the temptations that would cause me to do something forbidden or something that's bad for society. Any type of struggle is a jihad. And in Islam, we're encouraged to make that jihad for the sake of God, for our love of God, to make that struggle to improve ourselves and make ourselves better, to protect ourselves from evil, from temptations. Those are all considered jihad in Islam. The jihad that has to do with warfare is a type of jihad. It is a struggle. Sometimes when you've exhausted all other possibilities, the only way to fight back evil is through physical struggle. But this is always a last resort. And so yes, indeed, Islam gives us the option of engaging in physical struggle when every other option has been exhausted. But again, we do so only in the support of goodness in the world and not for any type of evil or personal greed or any other reason. And the rules of warfare in Islam are very strict, in fact. Fairness, justice. In fact, the Quran tells us that if the other side asks you for peace, we are required to give them peace. So this concept of holy war and many people will say, well, Islam was spread by the sword and people were forced to convert to Islam. Again, these concepts are completely separate from Islam and are forbidden and are rejected in Islam. There's no such thing as forcing another person to become Muslim. This is rejected in Islam, and the Quran explicitly tells us that there is no compulsion religion. No one can be forced to become a Muslim, whether by sword or any other way. So these are some of the misconceptions that exist in Islam, and hopefully I've been able to dispel some of them for you. And I really encourage you to learn as much as you can, learn more about Islam, to really understand what is the true Islam and not the Islam that you may hear from people who don't know very much about it, or from the media, or from opponents of Islam, because Islam really is a beautiful religion. And those of us who are a Muslim, we love this religion and we love to share it with others because it's added so much beauty and love in our hearts that we wish to share it with the world and to teach them about it. So with that said, I encourage you to learn more about Islam, and we have resources available too that you'll see here listed on our website, and we'll have links available for you where you can follow these to learn more about Islam. And of course, if you ever have any questions that you would like us to help you with, we're more than willing and always available to help answer questions and teach more about Islam. So thank you so much for being with us, and it was my honor to be with you today. Again, my name is Ronnie, and I'm always here to help as well.